Hello, welcome to Gregography. In this episode, I describe collecting dollar bills from a coin collecting point of view. After about a dozen years of collecting coins from circulation, I reached a point where I found nearly all of the coins I could reasonably expect to find in my change. Nearly every penny, every nickel, every dime, every quarter, except all these ones. I even tried collecting dollar coins, which was super inconvenient. I decided the only reasonable course of action would be now to collect dollar bills, also known as Federal Reserve notes. After all, I get them in my change every day, and they've largely gone unnoticed until now. So as a coin collector, this was my approach to collecting dollar bills.
When looking at a bill, the first thing I note is its year or series. Each series will last a few years and changes whenever one of these people whose signature is on the bill is replaced. That would be the Treasurer of the United States and the Secretary of the Treasury, a cabinet-level position. The first modern dollar bill came out in 1963, and since then there have been 27 different series of dollars introduced. So far, I have found 12 of them in circulation. The current series, 2017A, is an exception. This marks the first time a new series was issued without a change in one of those officials. It's suspected the designation was given due to a new ink formulation. Prior to 1963, the US dollar was backed by silver, so our dollar bills were silver certificates, whereas the modern bill is known as a Federal Reserve note and is a fiat currency backed only by legislation. The next thing I note is this big letter, which represents the Federal Reserve Bank branch from which these bills were issued, but not where they were printed. There are 12 Federal Reserve banks which are represented by the letters A through L. And here is a map from the Federal Reserve showing their locations. In addition to the big G here, the same letter representing the branch can be found at the start of the serial numbers, and the number corresponding to that letter, 7, is located in 4 other places. Another thing I pay attention to is this small FW in the corner next to the plate number that tells you where the bill was printed. Similar to a mint mark on coins, instead of the mint, U.S. bills are printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. There are 2 facilities, one in Washington, D.C., which was the first, and one in Fort Worth, which began operations in 1990. There are no markings on the D.C. bills, whereas those printed in Fort Worth have an FW in the corner. This reminds me of the U.S. penny, which has a D mint mark for Denver, but no mint mark for Philadelphia. Next, I want to point out the serial number. The first letter is the bank branch, then a bunch of numbers, then another letter which represents the printing run, the first run being A, and so forth. If there's a problem with a particular batch of bills, the reprinted versions will have a star instead of a letter. These are known as star notes. Many people who collect dollar bills collect certain types of serial numbers. These include low serial numbers, radar notes, where the number is the same forward and backwards, repeating numbers, and birthday notes, as well as the star notes. There isn't a functional equivalent to serial numbers with coins, so I don't pay much attention to them apart from collecting star notes. The same is true for the last item on a bill I want to mention, and those are the various numbers on the bill which describe the plate position and plate number used during the printing process. There's one on the reverse as well. Again, no equivalent in coin collecting, so I don't pay much attention to them. Earlier, I showed the front of a silver certificate dollar. Well, here's the back of that same dollar. It's the exact same design we use today, only the front has changed.
So how do I organize my collection? I didn't find any checklists online or any collecting albums to put them in. I'm not even sure which bills were issued. Do all 12 banks issue them for each series? And does DC and Fort Worth even print them for all 12 banks? I had a harder time than expected finding accurate mintage figures, printing figures, for all of the bills, until I came across this website called uspapermoney.info. On the right it lists all the denominations and the series. Let's look at the most recently completed series, 2017. Bills printed in Washington, D.C. are in green. Bills printed in Fort Worth are in pink. This series was printed between October 2017 and November 2019. and at the bottom are the total number printed for each Federal Reserve branch. It does not break it down by Fort Worth or DC though, but you can kind of infer it based on how many are in each of these columns. For example, D, the Chicago ones, had a bunch printed in Washington, D.C., and then had a bunch printed in Fort Worth. In total, there were $3.7 billion bills printed from the 2017 series. The most were printed for Bank L, which is San Francisco, with 544 million. The fewest, we have a tie for Bank C, which is Philadelphia, and Bank I, which is Minneapolis. They only printed 76.8 million for those two banks. I was hoping there would be 24 bills per series, which would make a nicely organized book. But no. Which bureau prints the bills for each Federal Reserve Bank is not consistent from series to series, which makes my attempt at a nicely organized book not possible. I started collecting in October 2019, when the 2017 A series had not yet started. Now that I've described how I collect dollar bills, let's see me collecting in action.
Today I'll be going through $50 from the bank, $2 I took from my wife's wallet, and $11 I got in change from the cafeteria this week. First, I'll sort them by series. I rarely get anything older than the 2009 series, so I'll just start with 4 piles. Here we find a Star Note, 2013K. And lastly, I found one older bill, 2003A. Now I'll sort each series by branch number. I'll start with 2017A because there are quite a few of these I don't have yet. So far, I've found 7 of the 12 branches. I've also found both versions of the D dollar, which is 8 of the potential 24 bills in this series, since I'm collecting those printed at both DC and Fort Worth. Here's one I didn't have before, letter E. This F is also better than my current one, so I'll replace that as an upgrade. There are a lot of G's here, both DC and Fort Worth, so I'll put these into 2 piles since I don't have both of these yet. And here's the best version of each bill. Nice, I found 2 bills I didn't have before. I now have 8 of the 12 branches, or 10 of the 24 potential bills in the 2017 A series. Now I'll go through the older series. Here is my checklist. If no bills were made for a particular branch from one of the 2 printing facilities, those boxes are grayed out. Since 2017 A is still ongoing, no boxes have been grayed out yet. Those I've collected are marked with an X or a star if I found a Star Note for that bill. I've already found all of the different bills from 2017 and 2013, but I found the 2013 Star Note, so I'll see how it compares to the one I found previously. The new one I found is much nicer than the old one, so I will switch that one out. Next, I'll go through the 2009 bills. There are still 3 from this series I have not found yet. Once again, I'll sort by branch letter. I didn't find any of the missing ones, but I did upgrade 1 bill. Lastly, let's take a look at that Series 2003A bill. I already have it, but let's see if it's an upgrade. And it is not.
Well, that's all I have for this video. At some point in time this year, I expect a new series of dollar bills featuring Janet Yellen's signature, the new Secretary of Treasury, to appear. Until next time, thanks for watching.